Well, over the last couple of years, you obviously would have heard in relation to a historic event, a tragedy, should I say, going back to 1942. And I think the Governor, Don Kotak, had a conversation with my guest next here on the show, Emil Solanki, who lives in Toronto. And you may have seen it on the website and across the social media platforms, and not just on my social media platforms, but on Sabras Radio as well. And Tilawa 1942, it's the forgotten tragedy. And, well, rather than me explaining it, I'm going to get my guest from Toronto. He's actually in the studio here on The Long Drive, Emil Solanki. Good evening.
Hello there. It's amazing to be here live talking about an incredible story with all of your listeners here in the Midlands. Thanks for having me.
Absolute a pleasure. You've been here on Sabras Radio a couple of times over the last, I would say, 3 years, and it's lovely to have you on my show, The Long Drive Now. How was your flight into the UK yesterday night, or early yesterday?
Yeah, I left on Monday evening and I arrived on Tuesday morning, 6.5 hours. It was a breeze. I flew with Virgin Atlantic this time.
There you go, bit of advertising there. All right, well, you flew in, and well, if it was a cruise, it would have taken you forever. But anyway, look, we're talking about Tilawa. For our listeners who don't know nothing about this, let's just backtrack, rewind a little bit to what is the SS Tilawa all about?
So, of course, there have been many tragedies around the world that gain prominence through media and documentaries and books. You think about the Titanic, the Lusitania, Pearl Harbor, Hiroshima, etc. But from a South Asian perspective, British Indian perspective, Second World War maritime tragedies in the Indian Ocean, we have a story that has been forgotten for decades, the ill-fated SS Tilawa. And essentially it is a story of 952 people that were on a passenger ship going from Bombay to South Africa back in November the 20th, actually, of 1942. That was the same year that Gandhi gave his famous do or die speech, actually the same year that Amitabh Bachchan was born. And it was in that year that many Indians from Goan Christian backgrounds, Sikh, Muslim and Hindus were going to Africa for a better life.
Amazing. Thanks for the introduction there. I was just checking out your website, which is Tilawa1942.com. It's got a lot of information there, which will come onto that in a couple of ticks. So tell us the reason for your visit now in relation to, well, you've come here to talk about Tilawa, so is there something special happening?
There is. I personally have a connection to the story because my great-grandfather actually sadly died during the torpedo attack from the Japanese Imperial Navy on November 23rd, and 678 people survived after fighting for dear life for 2 days, and unfortunately he was not one of them. But his first cousin, Devji Bai Bagabai Solanki, actually did survive, surviving barracuda and shark attacks, and he moved to Leicester and he passed away in the 80s. But you see, Tilawa has a very prominent Leicester story. There are many families who actually have loved ones who either survived or died during the Japanese attack, and so we have decided at Tilawa 1942 that Leicester should host the 83rd commemorative event, the 4th commemorative event in the world, the second one in Britain, and it's going to be held at the People's Centre on Sunday 23rd of November.
Why 23rd of November? Because I noticed of course the previous ones are on that particular day.
It's the anniversary,
right,
of the sinking of Tilawa. It was in the early hours of the morning that it was torpedoed twice by the Japanese, and we've always felt that it was appropriate that that be the day that we hold commemorative events. And we're happy to say that the British High Commission in Mumbai as well as in Pretoria, South Africa, recognize the same. And so in November each year they lay a Tilawa wreath. So November has become a special month for our organization and for Tilawa family members around the world.
Absolutely. I'm just checking out the details. Now, the first one in Mumbai, the 80th, but the first one ever, recognizing the Tilawa 1942, the forgotten tragedy. Just spend a few seconds or moments reflecting on that, Mumbai. How was that experience?
It was historic because my father and I got to work on something special after, at that time it would have been about 14 or 15 years. Since 2007 we've been on this journey of discovery together, and we wondered where would it be fitting to have the first ever commemorative event, and we chose Mumbai because, as known back then, Bombay, the Ballard Pier, the Ballard Estate, Tilawa left for the final time, and that is where all of the survivors arrived again on the 27th of November. So we were able to gain the support of people like Mr. Johnny Lever from the world of Bollywood, and the founder of the Mumbai Maritime Museum Society with their assistance. We were able to have this very special historic event, and we even had the British Deputy High Commissioner Mr. Alan Gemmell grace us with his presence and incredible speech, and now he is a Labour MP in Scotland.
Wow. Well, folks, welcome to The Long Drive this evening. You're in company with Kash Kumar here on The Long Drive with Emil Solanki from Canada. He's live in the studio. Emil touched the base that he was in in Mumbai with his father. What can I just say? I'm his father. He's my son. So it's such a privilege and an honor to have him actually on my show from Canada. He's come all the way here. So Emil Solanki is my son. It's a real honor and very touching moment to actually have a conversation with him live. We were in Mumbai many moons ago on the 80th. So Emil, for the audience, for our listeners, where was the second one, just for information's sake?
It was at the National Maritime Museum in Greenwich, London, the Royal Borough of Greenwich, and it was the first time on British soil that many Tilawa family members were able to get together because they missed out on attending the Mumbai commemorative event, and it was great. We had 140 people. The mayor of Greenwich came, and many other dignitaries and artists, including survivors and members of the SS Tilawa Foundation as well from South Africa.
Now that second commemoration, Emil, and for our listeners, was so important because 3 living survivors were there. Maybe just for emphasis, you can emphasize on those survivors.
Yes, we've lost a lot of precious people over the years who could talk about the forgotten tragedy, which we've also started to describe as the Indian Titanic, and that's actually helped gain traction. And so survivors, their children, their grandchildren have been able to reach out to us through radio interviews like this, news articles, etc. And so Mrs. Tej Prakash Mungat from Cincinnati, Ohio, 92 years old, she was able to attend the 81st commemorative event. Mr. Arvind Baijani, who is now 86, he actually was able to make Mumbai, so that was truly special. Mr. Mervyn Maciel, who will turn 96 this week, he was not on the ship. He became an orphan in Bombay when his parents and his 3 younger infant siblings sadly passed away. So it's amazing that he is still alive to support the work that we are doing. And you asked earlier why choose Leicester. Well, another special reason is because shortly after the Greenwich commemoration, early 2023 actually, we were told of 24 rather, we were told of Mr. Gaffer Ayub Osman, who is here in Leicester. He was about 9 years old at the time on the ship of SS Tilawa, and it is just such a privilege and honor to know that he is doing everything he can to stay alive to attend the Leicester event. I know, Dad, you've had the opportunity to meet him. I have not, but we'll have the opportunity later today, I believe.
Later this evening, we will go and say hello to Mr. Osborne. I know he's listening now and their family. So good evening to you folks there as well. Now, that's amazing because to think that these individuals were on the ship. You know, this year marks 80 years of the end of World War II. You know, the recognition of the World War II last week in the city of London, in London, the capital. And so it's quite, you know, important to recognize this because this was in the thick of World War II back in 1942. A lot of things were going on, massive history, and hence, of course, calling it the forgotten tragedy. How poignant is this for the Asian community, Amir, would you say?
Very much so, because there is often an effort to remember those who were lost during the Second World War. We have to remember that the Tilawa tragedy took place, 3 years before the war would end, and 5 years before the end of British rule in India. And talking about London, at the Tower Hill Memorial, there are actually some Tilawa personnel that are mentioned under the name Tilawa, and one of them was E.B. Duncan. Nobody ever talks about E.B. Duncan. He was a first radio officer. The captain actually did a runner, and yet this officer went down with the ship. He ensured sending distress calls that somebody would hear of what had happened, and thanks to his bravery and heroic efforts, which was acknowledged by His Majesty King George VI with a bravery award that was given to his family about a year or two after the tragedy, he was acknowledged. So it's wonderful to know that there is something there in London, but we also need to think about the Indian people, the Indian diaspora, who were trying to make a new life that came from a primitive background. And we believe that Tilawa was the only passenger ship to be attacked during the Second World War with no military threat to the Japanese. So that's also another reason why it makes this story unique.
Absolutely, and it is important because these individuals of all backgrounds from India traveling to make a better life for themselves. It's a story forgotten. Today we still talk about, after 100 years, the Titanic, the legendary Titanic, but this particular ship, we don't talk about. Hence, I think over the last 18 years of research, the first commemoration, as you said, Bombay, then the Greenwich Maritime Museum. Now, last year it was in Durban, South Africa. How was that, just for our listeners?
Yes, that was fantastic to be with you visiting Durban, where the Tilawa ship was destined for, and to be with our friends at the SS Tilawa Foundation in South Africa, who also helped, kickstart the research back in the early 2000s and met many Tilawa survivors on the continent of Africa. And so for us to be with family members there to memorialize the loss of life, to acknowledge the tragedy officially on African soil, was fantastic, because there is a strong connection to Mozambique, Kenya, Uganda, Zambia, Malawi, which is where Mr. Gaffer's family are from, and of course South Africa. So a very, very touching experience to be able to have done something there.
I was just thinking, if folks who are listening want to get in touch, maybe they know of somebody who was on the SS Tilawa, be that from Africa, be that in South Africa, Kampala, Uganda maybe, or even in India, Gujarat, etc., or even Mumbai. They know family members that maybe survived or didn't survive, because I know we've got a comprehensive list of the passengers. How can they contact the foundation or the SS Tilawa in 1942?
Yes, we would say please, please, please never be shy of talking about events of our parents, our grandparents, our great-grandparents from the past, because you never know what's going to surface. Tilawa 1942, tilawa.com, or info@tilawa1942.com. All common social media platforms, also YouTube, Tilawa 1942. There are always people coming forward. In recent times, we had a couple of people that said, I had relatives, my father, my uncle, my cousin, who were part of personnel or, on the restoration of Tilawa. Her Excellency, Mrs. Namisha Madhwani from the well-known Madhwani family in Uganda. Did you know that she is now the High Commissioner of Uganda to the United Kingdom? She is located currently in London. Her mother, her grandmother, her aunts were all survivors of the SS Tilawa. They actually were in the same lifeboat as Captain Robertson.
Wow.
And when they arrived back in Bombay on the 27th of November, guess who welcomed them and, took care of them? It was the well-known Nanjibai Kalidas, who is the grandfather of Mr. J. Mehta. Mr. J. Mehta is the husband of Juhi Chawla. So we are constantly making these connections.
Wow, that is amazing, folks. You just heard it there. I mean, that's, and I know there's been some update on that, which we'll talk about maybe in the near future, but there's so much been happening. And you lovely listeners, if you know anything about Tilawa, do check it out on the website, Tilawa 1942, family from Gujarat, just India in general, who may have traveled, and there were various different ships traveling, but of course this particular passenger ship that we know of was torpedoed by the Japanese. Why? We don't have an answer to that, but we know there was some kind of like silver bars on that, and there's a lot of update on that. I don't know if we're allowed to talk about that now, but you can do, Emil, very, very briefly.
2,391 silver bars, valued at about £32 million. That's 60 tons of silver. That's over 2.1 million ounces of silver was being transported for the purpose of coinage from the government of India, Bombay Mint, to South Africa, and it was at the bottom of the sea for over 70 years when it was discovered and salvaged in 2017 by Argentum Exploration. It then ended up in quite a heaty legal conflict between the Republic of South Africa and Argentum. Argentum won twice, and then they lost at the UK Supreme Court. It was a historic ruling in May of 2024 because essentially the ruling was that the silver belongs to South Africa, and the silver, most of it was smelted. It has been produced or turned into commemorative products like silver bars, silver coins. Our organization, were actually privileged to get our hands on one of 200 faceplates from the original bar, which is just so amazing to be able to physically touch a maritime artifact on a vessel where my great-grandfather was once traveling on, and you will not believe that recently the UK Royal Mint actually coined the Britannia Tilawa coin with His Majesty King Charles III's image on one side and the Tilawa symbol on the other. So think about the exposure to the subject, another way of raising awareness of the forgotten tragedy.
It's amazing to think about that. Only 18 years ago, thereabouts, there's hardly anything on the website, anything on the internet regarding SS Tilawa 1942. Possibly just the passengers list, if anything. But today, there's so much exposure to this and still going. I mean, your final words, Emil, before you go. I know there's a lot to send. I know you'll be visiting back in November, where there'll be further updates that you could actually disclose. But as a closing thought.
Yes, as a closing thought, just incredible work that is being done with. This is breaking news as of the last week or two that another deep ocean exploration company Magellan have visited Tilawa. This is the second time that the wreck has been visited, 4,500 meters deep in the middle of the Indian Ocean, 1,000 miles northeast of the Seychelles, and they have started to release some images of the ship. This is so emotional. So we hope that over time we'll be able to gain access to that. Who knows what we'll be able to share by the commemorative event in November. We were just interviewed by Dan Snow at History Hits on he's a very well-known documentarian. We have been invited to Film Conclave during India Week on Monday, May 26, where we will be able to talk about the story, and we've been very open about this, that eventually we would love to see Tilawa become a movie, and at the very least have a documentary on it. And finally, a Tilawa dedicated museum in Hebburn, Newcastle, where the ship was built. Can you believe all of these various developments are taking place when, as you said, 18 years ago, you couldn't find much on the internet about the ship?
Absolutely. And folks, this is the reason why Emil is here, because of the invitation to the Film Conclave next weekend in London. It's absolutely massive. And let's see, as we move on, and as we remember, as you said, 280 people who lost their lives, including our granddad, who was on that ship, sadly, at the age of around 28 to about 30 years old. But Leicester has a relationship with SS Tilawa, as you said, Emil, and we look forward to you visiting Sabras Radio very soon. And if anybody does want to come along to the commemoration, what's the best thing?
So we would ask that you please support the commemorative event. We're going to be, as I said, at the People Centre in the theatre. It seats 380 people. There will be seats reserved for dignitaries, special guests. The Lord Mayor of Leicester just accepted our invitation. There may be other special guests coming too. Lots of Tilawa family members, survivors. We really hope that Mr. Jani, Mrs. Mungat, Mr. Maciel, Mr. Osman will be able to attend. And those who are perhaps not connected to the tragedy may at first feel that this is not an event for them. But please, as fellow Indians, this is a wonderful opportunity. This is still a part of your heritage and history and legacy. And so if you are interested in coming, please reach out to info@tilawa1942.com. That's info@tilawa1942.com. And we will do our best to accommodate you, and it will be an incredible experience for Leicester.
Absolutely amazing. So there you go. That's Emil Solanki from Toronto here on the long drive this evening, talking about the progress on SS Tilawa 1942, the forgotten tragedy. And of course, there's the Film Conclave over the weekend, next week that is, in London, where they'll be going as a team, myself as well, of course, and see what progress we can make in that front. But there's a lot to do, a lot of hard work to do. This is just just scratching the surface, you could say, but remembering those that passed away back in 1942 and how that tragedy affected so many families since 1942. In fact, it turned out to be a bit of a taboo subject, but as I said, more of that coming your way over the next many months here on Sabras Radio.